I never thought I would meet the love of my life through an Instagram DM. Yes, you heard me right. I met my now wife on a random Friday in 2019 over Instagram DMs. That season of my life, I really pressed into God because God was literally all I had left. You know, I felt worthless. I felt unloved. I felt like relationship just wasn't for me. But God really had to do a work in my heart to realize that He is my first love, and that He cares about me, and that He cares about the things that matter to me. And, you know, like every typical Christian, whether you're a new Christian or like you're coming back to the faith, you're doing all these things to like love on God. And then you're like, next step is like, I need to find my helpmate. I need to find my person. And I kind of found myself getting back into the cycle of like trying to manufacture and doctor an outcome. And I tried to talk to like other girls within our church and within our church fellowship, but it just really didn't work out. I put my heart out. I put effort into it, but you know, we just weren't vibing. I told God, I'm like, I don't want to try anymore. Like, I feel like I keep putting myself out there and it's not working. I feel like I'm doing everything right in terms of pressing into relationship to you and running this race in a much better way than I used to. But there's nothing for me, then I'll just serve you and I won't be in a relationship. And I remember getting on my knees, you know, praying to God, like, you know, I'll give you this one last chance, but like, other than this, I'm done. And He gave me 2 scriptures, which were really helpful to me because they helped anchor me during that period to just recognize that in the right time, God will see through the things that He has for your life, and that He will see through even the desires that your heart has as well. And literally 2 weeks later, my wife DM'd me commenting about a story that like I never even expected to find the love of my life through. Around this season when I was single, I started a podcast called Real Community Talks. And it was a podcast talking with community influencers. The line was micro level influencers doing macro level things. Shout out to all the people who are still here because of that podcast. And I realized that this girl had followed me on my Instagram a few days before she reached out on DM. And that wasn't weird to me because a lot of new people started following me because they followed the podcast. And then I put up this story on my Instagram, and I'll never forget it because it was the infancy of us. The story read, "Rock bottoms will teach you lessons that mountaintops never could." And I just take a sec, go to Instagram, check my DM, and it's this girl that I saw who followed me. And she had this beautiful pro quality camera model type profile picture. And at first I thought I was getting catfished because I'm like, girls this pretty don't reach out to me at all. Like I was really letting myself go in this season of life. I had gained so much weight. I was about like 280 pounds. I looked like the love child of like Drake and DJ Khaled. I had like shaved all my head in an identity crisis trying to figure out who I wanted to be. And in pops this DM from this beautiful girl who I never thought would even want to talk to me. And she replied to the story, funny enough. And basically the conversation ended up going to, "Oh, I watched your podcast. Keep doing big things for the kingdom." So then when I saw that line, I was like, wait, she has mutual friends that lived in our community of Malton, Mississauga, and she's a Christian. And like the lights in my head were like flashing, like she's the one, you've been wanting to meet and talk to. And I kid you not, I started cleaning the storage room at like 10 in the morning. I opened up my phone at 12 p.m. noon. And our conversation just flowed from like 12 to 6 p.m. just before I had to actually preach at youth. And I joked with her that day, but it was actually true. And I said, I feel like you're the female version of me. Like I met someone who like literally finishes my sentences, knows the exact experiences I've had, was brought up in a very similar way, and is like processing life as a Christian in a very real and raw and vulnerable way. How did I never meet you? And we found out that we lived like a 5-minute drive from each other. I went to like her mom's restaurant one day after school, not knowing or ever meeting them. Her brother and I went to the same middle school and even had the same friends come to our birthdays, but we weren't friends. And it really started to unfold to show me that like God was writing this story long before all of the mishaps ever happened. And He knew the right timing when I needed to find my person. And it wasn't the other times, but He needed to do work on me to prepare me for that. And honestly, like from that day, February 22nd, 2019, we never looked back. And our relationship progressed in a way that I didn't even think was possible. Not because it was so quick, but we just continued to get these confirmations that this was what God wanted. And I remember telling Shannon very early on I don't typically have friends that are girls. And not in any weird way. It's just I know that, like in my past relationships, I'll just catch feelings and bond because of emotions and not because I actually want to be in this relationship, but because I divulged the deepest parts of me to someone who didn't really need to know that or deserve that information. If this is what we want to pursue, like, I'm not here to be your friend. Like, I'm here because I want to pursue you. And I remember saying that like a few days after meeting her. And that was like a really bold thing to say to someone you just met and to like not scare them off. But when I say we had so many confirmations, because I said, I'm not going to be talking to other girls, I'd hope that you wouldn't be talking to other guys in that kind of way. And she said, yeah, absolutely. And then, over the weeks and months, like, people were coming up to us and said, I had a dream that you would meet this girl, and they described her and it was her. There was just so many things that lined up. I can't remember all of them right now, but all I can say is that the relationship felt effortless. It felt like we didn't have to like manufacture things, and it felt so peaceful because God was in the midst of it, and he truly was. So we met each other in February, and then it wasn't until November that I actually asked her to be my girlfriend officially. Like, we were exclusive to each other in the sense that like we weren't pursuing any other relationships with other people. And we knew in private that we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but like we didn't actually like tell other people. We kind of just let it be a friendship to the world until we were ready to come out. And yeah, so in November of 2019, I asked her to be my girlfriend. And then cue the pandemic hitting in February, March of 2020. That was really hard because we just became official. We were really trying to dive deeper into relationship and get to know each other more. And now we're having to social distance and not see each other all the time. And that was really hard. It put a strain on our relationship because we really had to do a lot of work to tend to this relationship without ever seeing each other for a long time. And it really felt like a long distance relationship, I'm not gonna lie. But, God was faithful. He was in the midst of it, and he was writing this story even if the world was developing in a way that we didn't expect. And like, we faced a lot of challenges in our relationship beyond just the social distancing. My family from like the get was just not accepting of my relationship. And their excuse was that my past relationships showed them that I had things that I needed to work on and that I dove into things too quickly. But when God is in the midst of something, not everyone is going to co-sign on that, and not everyone's going to believe in that. And also, like, people have their own ideas of how stories and things should unfold and develop. My wife, as precious and as beautiful and as smart and intelligent and sweet as she is, was just villainized by them. So we had to deal with that aspect in my relationship, to the point now today where I'm actually estranged from my family, not because of her, but because of a lot of other things in my life where they've tried to just control my life and see me as a villain in a lot of things. But that's a story for another day. But we dealt with these challenges while we were dating. And then while we were dating, I had just started a new job. And we, at this time, were starting to talk about, like, what would our future look like? Like, are we going to own a home? What would we want our wedding to look like? And these things cost money. So I started this full-time job. And around this time was when I also ended the mentorship that I was doing with my church, because as much as people said that I would be a pastor, I never felt the strong calling on my life that God wanted me to be a pastor. I felt like other people just wanted that ideal for my life. I remember speaking to my pastor, rest in peace, David Quackenbush. He always told me that God doesn't need more pastors. He needs more men of integrity in policing, in the education sector, in government, in coffee shops, like wherever it is. He needs representatives everywhere. And he said, if you're going to be a pastor, you have to be absolutely sure that that's what God has called you to, because you're going to be tested in ways that are going to make you feel like you want to come out of ministry. So make sure that the calling is yours without a doubt. But I never felt that. So I went back into the workforce and I found this job doing research for this organization. And then 1 month later, the pandemic happened. So this organization went fully remote. And for a time we were working remote. And then the organization, which was funded by the government, said that we're going to be pulling a majority of the funding because we can't afford to run these agencies if they're just virtual. And I remember we were about a 13, 14 person team. I was the newest to the team. And they said that by the end of the day, they would be making calls to let people know whether they were going to be let go or not. And I remember telling Shannon at the time, and we were just so devastated because we were just starting these conversations about like the life we want to start building and start saving towards. And all of that was just crumbling in front of our eyes. And I remember going into that video call with the executive director, fully expecting as the newest person in the organization that I would be let go. And they decided to keep 2 people from the 14, and I was one of them. And I was just absolutely shocked and taken aback by the fact that they would choose to keep me. But they say we see our future vision with you leading the charge for whatever portfolio I had. And I was just humbled because even though there were challenges and things happening, God kept sustaining the life we wanted to build, our relationship through this process. And we were just really grateful that I was able to have this job. And then 8 months later, I actually got a promotion to now where I'm working in the education sector. And that's what I'm currently doing right now. And I just continue to build my career to a place where I'm making much more money than I used to. And the only reason I say that is because I found someone who was able to call out purpose in me and support my dreams and my vision for my life and the things that God had for me. When you find the right person, they will call out and pull out purpose from you and greatness from you that you can't even see. It's not to say that we wouldn't have been successful people without each other, but the right person is going to make life that much sweeter to live than if you just tried to do it all by yourself. So then now August 2022, we get engaged and we enter into a 2-year engagement. We always talked about if we were going to get engaged, we would really set the stage for like the life we wanted to build from then on. Like things were discussion before, but then we'd really set in motion like, you know, finances and planning and the dedication to certain aspects that would help see that life come together. Because we didn't want to be people who just had a nice wedding but then didn't own a home. We practically wanted to have enough money to actually buy a home. And that's what we did. Like I know a lot of people didn't understand why we did a 2-year engagement, but I do not regret it. It might not be for you, but for us, it allowed us to really have the time to just have the mental headspace, because that 2 years went by faster than we ever thought it would. So many things happened within that time. We were able to buy our home just before the wedding. And I'm so glad that we made that decision, because now we're in our home and it's our place. It's our place of peace. And God provided even in that story. That's a whole other story how that came to be. But all of this to say, God kept sustaining the relationship and the life around the relationship. And that's what I really want to hone in on and encourage you all today. Because when it's a God thing, God will provide the way. Previously, I kept trying to sustain it in my own strength. I kept trying to doctor the outcome. I kept trying to tell God what I wanted to happen and how I wanted it to happen in my way. And God had to humble me. And I'm so thankful that he did, to say that my way is better. My timing is sovereign. And I'll give you way more than you could have even asked for if you just trust me. Because the counterfeits that I pursued in that season of singleness, where I wanted to have a relationship for relationship's sake because I was lonely and I wanted companionship, no offense, but those people were a million times not the person that my wife is today. So I'm so glad that God worked in the way that he did and that he steered me in the right path by the no's that happened in my life, by the disappointments that came through my story. So now it's about 8 months from our wedding, and I had this huge falling out with my family, and I got kicked out of my family home, and I actually had to move into the house that we had just bought just before the wedding. And the timing wasn't right, but God still sustained me in that season. He allowed me to be able to like take care of the home, figure out things that I would need to. And he really actually started to prepare me to be the husband that he was calling me to be when we would eventually get married in August of 2024. And I know some of you might think you both went through so many challenges. Like, is that a sign that this isn't the right relationship? And I want to encourage you that like stop letting all of that noise get to your head, because the right person is going to help you through all of those storms. God ordained Shannon for my life because he knew that I needed her patience and I needed her emotional intelligence to help me process the very real disappointments that we all can't avoid in this life. Yes, there were some bad turns in our story and challenges even today that we face, but they don't define us. In the same way that we can't doctor the outcome and want God to give us certain things, we also can't change the fact that we live in a fallen and a broken world and that people are people. But I have the most loyal, loving, caring, affectionate, and like I said, emotionally intelligent wife that a guy could ever ask for. Because I found the person who God knew I needed to accompany me on this journey of life that is very challenging and not linear. It has its dips and its hills and all of that. So where are we at now? Almost 2 years married. My life's purpose now is to just be the best husband I can ever be in this lifetime to my wife. And that's not something that you just come into on your wedding day. It's a lifelong journey and a process, because the process of becoming a husband is more important than just achieving the thing. It's refining and humbling yourself, dying to yourself daily. The calling to literally love your wife as Christ loved the church isn't something that's just going to happen with the snap of a finger. It takes a lifetime of humility, refinement, growth. And I have the person that just has the grit to manage this life with me, call me out on the things that I need correction on, and have grace for me like Jesus has grace for me. I've always said that my wife is the most tangible expression of what I feel like Jesus looked like on this earth. And that's who you should marry, is someone that looks like Jesus, that talks like Jesus, that acts like Jesus, that does and doesn't do like Jesus. Because your marriage is supposed to be a reflection of your relationship with God. I don't have the 3-step process of how you're going to find the love of your life, but I do know the source of where you need to go to, and that's God. That's Jesus. And when you press into him and you're running that race with him, he's going to show you that person who's going to be running alongside of you at the same pace. They're not going to be doing all of the same things you're doing, but they're going to be running the same pace as you. They're not going to be ahead of you. They're not going to be behind you. So don't let those counterfeit options cloud your mind and your judgment and confuse you. The right person will feel like it's like plug and play, effortless. You feel like you've known them your whole life. So be patient, fully trust and press into God. And I say that as someone who knows, even in this season of my life, I haven't done that so much. And I know that the next phase of our life that we're looking forward to is only going to happen because of our devotion and our dedication and our love and desire to grow more deeply in relationship with God. If this video encouraged you today and you stayed this long to hear our story, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, and just start a conversation in the comments about your journey or your story or where you're at. If you're looking for a relationship, if you feel like you've waited 40 years for a relationship, that you're trusting God and it hasn't happened, whatever that may look like, let us know, engage with us in the comments. And we're hoping to drop videos at least weekly, and they could be topical videos like this, maybe vlogs, stories, whatever that may look like. We're just so grateful that you're joining us on this journey as we navigate love, life, and everything in between.